So the question I get all the time from sellers is how much can I get for my house, right? The question is how much money is a cash buyer going to pay you? Now, and of course the answer is it depends, right? It depends on how bad the condition is. It depends on the reason you're going to a cash buyer. Is it a time issue? Is it a condition issue? What is the reason? Is it a municipal issue? Like are there open permits, unpermitted additions, that kind of thing? Those things come up a lot in Long Island, and there really is no simple formula for it. So there are times where I will offer numbers that are very close to what somebody can list for, and there are times where there's going to be a huge gap. It really is somewhat of a function of how much work I'm going to have to do or what kind of problem I need to fix up, right? So, for example, if someone has open permits for work that may or may not have been done to code, that's going to take me a long time to fix. A lot of the municipalities take a long time. I'm waiting 7 months for something from Town of Hempstead right now. So, just to get permits. So, clearing up those things, I have to figure out what my costs are going to be to hold it, what my costs are going to be in case I'm borrowing money. And it really, really depends. So if something is in worse condition, obviously if something is in seriously bad condition, the difference between what you're going to sell it to investor or to list it at is going to be significant. Now, sometimes you don't have an option of listing it, right? If the property is not mortgageable, if you can't get a mortgage, so there's a hole in the roof, the kitchen doesn't work, there's no bathroom that works, it's almost impossible for an end user buyer, a regular person who wants to move in, to get a loan for it. And if most people can't get a loan, most people are not going to buy the property. But if it's in decent condition, it is possible. So then, very often people will bring me to their house. I'll look at the house and I'll go, listen, you should not sell this to me or any other investor. You're going to leave, $75,000 to $100,000 on the table. This is a property you should list. Now, I am unique in that I also list properties. So I do two things. I buy properties that need work, I fix them up and I sell them. And I also list properties, right? Now, I never wanted to be a realtor. I really wanted to be a house flipper. I wanted to be Tarek El Moussa from Flip or Flop. That was my dream. And after 4 years of buying properties, fixing them up and selling them, and paying somebody to list them for me, I finally realized this makes no sense. I became a real estate broker myself, and I list my properties myself. And then what happened is, as I go on a lot of appointments to meet with sellers, I meet sellers who either really want to list or who really should list. And I've told hundreds of sellers, listen, this is a property you should list. Now, sometimes they say no, but very often they say yes. And the basic criteria of whether you can list it is if it's mortgageable, can it be mortgaged? If it doesn't really need that much to it, and time frame. If you're okay with a buyer's time frame. Now, there are sellers who come to me and say, look, I can't be on a buyer's time frame. My house is going to be ready in a month and I need to close in a month. So you got to figure any property you're going to list is going to be a minimum of 3 to 4 months before you close, because it takes about a month to get this into contract. I know everybody says, oh, everything's nothing for sale, it'll take a week. It takes a month for the attorneys to work out their crap. It'll take you a week to find the buyer. Even if you take an offer from the first week, it's going to take them 2 to 3 weeks to get the property under contract. Then it's going to take them 2 to 3 months to get a loan. That's just the average. I've closed deals in a month after that, and I've had deals that took 6 months. So you need to understand that if you're listing a property, it's going to be 3 to 4 months, and you are going to be on a buyer's timeline. That means if a buyer needs to close and you're not ready, you're out of luck and you may have to move. And if you are ready sooner and the buyer's not ready, the buyer can push you off for a long time. So if you're flexible on time frame and the house is pretty good, you should always list it. That'll give you the most money for sure, right? And I'll tell people, listen, if you list it, you're going to probably get X. I can pay you Y, which is less than X, right? But there are certain trade-offs. So the trade-off for selling a property to an investor is you get the certainty and convenience that investors provide. So what that means is that the number is the number. I'm not going to change my number. I'm not sending an inspector who then, I sell these properties retail. So I had a property, the guy bid above asking and then brought an inspector in and asked me for a $25,000 reduction. So that's just bullshit. That's kind of bullshit you get when you list a property. So when I offer a number, that number is the number. It's not going to change. I'm not bringing in an inspector. I'm not bringing in an appraiser, right? If you very often you're going to sell your property to someone who's going to get an FHA loan. FHA is going to make you make repairs, right? It happens to me all the time. FHA buyer comes and they want me to put railings on outside on the steps. They want me to put smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors and all kinds of crap that I wasn't planning on doing, and then I have to do it. So that's never going to happen with me. I'm never requiring you to do that. That's a certainty. And the convenience of not having to show the property 100 times, right? Maybe we'll have one, once, twice come in. And the convenience of closing whenever you want, which can be in a long time if you need time, or it can be a couple of weeks if you need to close quickly, right? A lot of people call you and say, "Oh, we'll close in 24 hours." That's bullshit. It takes 2 to 3 weeks to get title right now in most counties in New York. So the idea that you're going to close in less time than that is absurd. You always need title. So you need a title report, you need title insurance. So that's the certainty and convenience that an investor provides. And for a lot of people, it's worth it, right? They're going to give up. If I have to give up 20, 30, sometimes more money than that, $20,000 or $30,000 or more, for the certainty and convenience to know that I can close that I'll close whenever they want, that the number is not going to change, that I'm not going to parade 500 people in there every weekend and 15 times during the week, and all kinds of things that we provide. That is the convenience, and it's a straight up trade-off, right? There is nobody's taking advantage of anyone. So those are the advantages of selling to an investor. This is not a predatory situation. I call people sometimes. They say, "Hey, listen, this is not a handyman special." I go, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, right? People feel like I'm going to come in there with a sledgehammer and just lowball them. Oh, I'll give you $10 for the house. It's not what happens, right? My job as an investor is to find out if you have a problem I can solve. If you don't have a problem I can solve, we're not going to do business, and that's fine. And I don't buy every house I go into. I probably buy 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4. So I buy a lot fewer houses than I meet with people and go into. And I'm just trying to do what's best for you. If what's best for you is to list it, I'm happy to list it. And I'm not going to get into why you might want to list it with me, but I am the least expensive, quickest, and best realtor that exists in the world. But I'm not trying to sell you now. So it's a straight up trade-off of money for convenience and certainty. It's the same as going to Starbucks and paying $7 for a cup of coffee. You're going in there and paying 100 times what the ingredients cost because you don't want to buy a coffee grinder, you don't want to buy the beans, you don't want to buy the cups, you don't want to do anything. You just want to know it's there, and you're willing to pay a ridiculous number, right? I mean, I'm 50. 30 years ago, if you told me you could pay $7 for a cup of coffee, people would tell you you're nuts. A cup of coffee used to be 25 cents. I don't want to sound so old, but that's the truth. So you're just trading money for convenience in that case, right? Instead of making, you could probably make that coffee for a quarter or 2 cents. So it's the same thing when you're selling your property. You're trading some of the proceeds for the certainty and convenience that an investor provides. And you don't need to do that unless there's a time frame issue. So you cannot be burdened with a buyer's time frame, either on the long side or on the short side, right? You may need time to find a place to go, or you may need to move pretty quickly. Buyers are not going to go for that. Regular end user standard buyers. Or there's a condition problem. It's in horrible condition, terrible condition. You know that someone's going to give you a number and then come in and jerk you around. Or there's a municipal issue, right? You have open permits or open violations or unpermitted additions that scare the crap out of you. Those are things that an investor will deal with, right? I'll deal with it. Or it could be a tenant issue, right? I'm buying a lot of occupied properties with non-cooperative tenants now. You don't want to deal with that. I'll deal with that. I deal with that all the time. Even during a moratorium, I deal with that. So if you don't have those issues, you should list. Okay? If you do have those issues, then you want to talk to an investor. And like I said, I think I'm unique in that I'll come to you and I'll give you options, right? You can list it at X. You're going to end up with less because there's going to be a commission, even though my commission is much smaller than anybody else's. But there's going to be some other issues going on, and you have to know what's going on. Or you can sell it to me for Y, which is going to be less money, and it's going to get you less money, but here are the advantages of Y, right? So those are really your choices, and that's what you should do. The one thing I would say don't do is list your property for sale by owner, because you will never know if you got as much for it as possible. So if your property is in good enough condition that you can list it for sale by owner, then list it with a realtor, right? If you don't want to spend a lot, you can list it with me, but you'll never know. So I've seen on dozens of occasions people listed for sale by owner recently and sold their property for $100,000 less than they could have got. They just didn't understand how much the market's moved. And they had a number in their head, and they got that number, and they were happy, but they really sold themselves short. You'll never know. If you list it on the multiple listing service with a agent, then the most people get to see it, and then you'll know that because the most people got to see it, you'll get the highest price for it. It's really that simple. That's the only, for sale by owner is just not a smart move. I highly recommend against it. And I'm talking to you like you were my brother, your sister, my father, my mother. I would say never, ever do that. List it with an agent. Even after the commission costs, you'll probably still do better because you're going to show it to so many more people. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any comments, comment below. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And if you're looking to sell, you can give me a call in the office at 516 209 2010. Thank you very much.